I'd like to call the order of the City of Joliet City Council meeting for May 5th. Presiding is Mayor Bob Odekirk. We'll have roll call. Well, I'm sorry, invocation by Councilman Pat Mudgeon, which will be led after which in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Good evening, everyone. Lord Jesus, please help us to stay strong and follow the rules that we all have been under for the past 6 weeks plus. The weather is getting nicer, and the temptation to stray will be strong. We are all in this storm together, and if we row in the same direction, we will be on our way to recovery very soon. Stay safe, all. God, thank you for what you've given us in the past and will give us in the future. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll begin with roll call. Mayor Odekirk.
Here.
Councilman Dickinson.
here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Hug. Absent. Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudgeon.
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Here.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Here.
Councilman Turk.
Here.
First on the agenda this evening is a proclamation for Foster Care Month.
Proclamation. Whereas May is National Foster Care Month, a time to acknowledge the foster parents, family members, volunteers, mentors, policymakers, child welfare professionals, and other members of the community who help children and youth in foster care find permanent homes and connections. Whereas the primary goal of the foster care system is to ensure the safety and well-being of children while working to provide a safe, loving, and permanent home for each child. Whereas all young people in foster care needs a meaningful connection to a caring adult who becomes a supportive and lasting presence in their lives. Whereas approximately 17,920 children are living in foster care in Illinois. Whereas foster families provide children with what they need the most, love, and foster families change their lives in many ways. Whereas foster parents deserve the utmost respect and gratitude for the lasting impact they have in the life of a child and their community. Now, therefore, I, Robert Odekirk, Mayor of the City of Joliet, Illinois, on behalf of the Joliet City Council, do hereby proclaim May 2020 as Foster Care Month in Joliet, Illinois, and commend its observance to all citizens. Dated May 5th, 2020, by Mayor Robert Odekirk.
Next is a proclamation for motorcycle awareness for May 2020.
Okay, good evening. Whereas the members of the Gold Wing Road Riders Association, also known as GWRRA, Motorist Awareness Program MAP of Illinois, and other organizations continually promote motorcycle safety, education, and awareness programs to the general public and to the motorist community of Illinois. Motorcycle riding is a popular form of recreation and transportation for thousands of people across the state and the nation. It is crucial that citizens of our city and state be aware of motorcycles on the roadways and recognize the importance of motorcycle safety. State and motorcycle organizations across this country will be conducting a variety of activities to promote motorist awareness and safely sharing the road with motorcycles, and will be reminding riders to be more visible to others. The motorcyclists of Illinois have contributed countless volunteer hours to their communities. All motorists should join GWRRA MAP of Illinois in actively promoting the safe operation of motorcycles, as well as promoting motorcycle safety, education, and awareness. Now, therefore, I, Robert Odekirk, Mayor of the City of Joliet, Illinois, on behalf of the Joliet City Council, do hereby proclaim May 2020 as Motorcycle Awareness Month and encourage motorcycle awareness and safe motoring for all. And it's dated April 16th, 2020. And I don't know if that's a misprint or it's supposed to be April. Was it April?
It was listed as May on the,
It should be May. Okay, whatever. We might have to correct the date on here. Apologize. And it's signed by Robert Odekirk, Mayor of the City of Joliet.
Thank you.
next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as written with the?
Krista, before we get into that, if I can address this real quick, and Dave, I know you're here. I've gotten complaints from some council people and residents about the way we're doing these meetings. I don't know if they're complaints, but more concerns. And the question is, why, for the 4 that are at home, why can't they video stream their way in so there could be, I guess, full disclosure, who's on the other line and what's happening, as opposed to the 5 of us that are here on camera? Would you mind commenting, Dave?
Yeah, sure, no problem. The city does have the ability to do what they call Teams, and you guys have seen it, whether it's Teams, Zoom, et cetera. And that works when all parties that are going to be communicating are on the same platform. Where that breaks down is when somebody wants to be heard that's outside of that ecosystem. So for example, if somebody wants to call in and they want to be part of that process, that becomes problematic because you get a delay in audio. And the audio delay is sometimes upwards 4, 5, 6 seconds. Some other municipalities have tried this and it doesn't work well. So if the situation is that it's just your group that's within the city that is going to be on it, that's one thing. If we have people that want to speak on public comments or want to speak on agenda items and so forth, that's where that complicates things. And I think you're going to find yourself very frustrated because you're going to want to ask questions and you're going to have 3, 4 second delays. So that's the challenge that's ahead of us with it.
So like tonight, there's 2 people scheduled to call in, or that we're gonna call. Mm-hmm. How difficult would it be to have the meeting with the 4 visually present, and then just deal with those 2 phone calls?
With 2 phone calls, it's one thing. If we had a real high volume, depending on the agenda item, we've had high volumes before, it could turn extremely problematic.
Right.
So, for example, if we wanted to make a policy, if we say there's 5 or under, we could maybe do a Teams call. I could see trying to make that work. We have to try it. We're not experts in this whole multimedia area, but we'll try to make that work. If it turns out there is a ton of people that are trying to come from the outside, my advice would be to not do the Teams call. Right. So that's probably where I would differentiate it.
Well, I'd like to try it, see how it works, and like at a low-key meeting like this, obviously, not rolling out.
Yeah, I think that would be the right way to do that, and then we go from there.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
Question, Dave.
Yeah.
My understanding, my wife's been doing a lot of Zoom meetings with the school district, that they generally have a capacity of up to 100 to join the same meeting as a maximum. And of course, there's an access code that you're given when you dial that phone number. If we, as the mayor said, if we have a light agenda, as you alluded to, couldn't we do that to the public too, if they wanted to, from the cell phone?
Yeah, but it gets to be pretty challenging in that because you have to control that. You get into a muting situation. Everybody can talk. Who do you release to talk and not talk? So there's logistics behind it. It gets kind of challenging. That's why we have Rich over there in the corner controlling who has the floor of the meeting. So that's where that gets challenging. So if we want to control the flow of the meeting, that's where that gets problematic.
And by no means is this, saying anything negative about the IT team. Because
Yeah.
They did a tremendous job on our recent week-long public hearing. They did do a tremendous job.
Yes, they did.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, listen, I just want it to work correctly, and so far, we've been able to navigate the waters here, but your point's well taken, I get it. And we could try it, if we have a meeting where we have, 2 or 3 public comments, I think we should give it a try.
Okay, I
Be
agree.
wide open to that, okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So the approval of the agenda is next. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as written with the following changes? Remove Council Memo 251-20, which is an ordinance amending the 2020 budget to authorize expenditure of purchase of 10 South Richard Street. This was per the request of the owner, Andre Dixon, who'd like to be brought back at a later date. And vote separately on Council Memo 262-20, which is a request for authorization to purchase 2 trailers for the Department of Public Works Roadways Division. And vote separately on Council Memo 263-20, which is request for authorization to purchase 5 one-ton dump trucks with plow accessories for the Department of Public Works Roadways Division.
One addition, Mayor, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Under ordinances and resolutions, C, on the rock salt. Should be separate for those 2 items.
See,
Under.
Yeah, I believe it's under ordinance, I'm sorry.
255-20.
Yeah, I'm referring to my committee number. Sorry about that,
That's
Chris.
okay. So on 255-20,
Yeah,
well,
that
actually,
is,
rock salt is 256-20. Appropriating motor fuel tax funds for the purchase of rock salt, that will be its own.
okay.
Vote.
I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
So is there a motion to approve the agenda with the changes that I mentioned, which is removing Council Memo 251-20 and voting separately under bids and contracts on Council Memos 262-20 and 263-20?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Motion carried. On citizens to be heard, we did receive 1 email that was forwarded to the council earlier today. We did not receive any request to be called under citizens to be heard. We do have 2 petitioners on the call that we will reference when we get to their council memo, which is 249-20 regarding Joliet Logistics Park subdivision.
okay.
So next is council committee reports. We have the Public Service Committee report.
The Public Service Committee met yesterday here at City Hall in the council chambers. And let me pull it up. It was rather routine except for 3 items. There we go. We had several contracts that we went through and we vetted, as well as some items under change order pay estimates and final payments, and ordinance and resolutions, for the most part, except for 3, were unanimously approved for recommendation to the full council. I did make it clear that, obviously, we're, at least for my part, and I think the committee as well as this council, is going through each item with a fine-tooth comb, because we have to prepare for what we don't know about, the unknown yet. So the items that were previously mentioned by Krista included the purchase of 2 trailers for the Public Works Department, as well as for the 5 dump trucks, and then the reassigning money from motor fuel tax instead of from general fund for rock salt purchase of a little over north of $400,000, I believe. And those items died without a resolution. They had no second to give a recommendation, so those 3 items are coming with no recommendation whatsoever. All the other items are recommended for approval to the full council. I don't think I missed anything. Of course, in the committee is Councilwoman Gavin, Councilman Morris, and myself. Of course, staff attended yesterday as well. And like I said, it was relatively routine, but it felt good to get back to our committee responsibilities. We hadn't done that in over a month. And did I miss anything, folks? Betty, Terry?
No, Larry, I think you said it all.
Okay, then that's the end of my report.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes,
can I clarify something?
sure.
It was stated on the radio this morning that the city council met yesterday and we were back to arguing and fighting and, I forget the word that was used, but squabbling. And it was such effect that when I thought, did I miss a meeting? Did I miss something? And come to find out, it was your public service meeting, and when I called you and talked to you, there was no disagreement, and the council didn't meet yesterday. So I just wanted to clarify that the council did not meet yesterday, and we were not fighting. So I don't know where that information came from, but it was an error.
At least not yet.
Well, not yet, right?
Mayor, can I follow up on that? Councilwoman Gavin, you and I had spoke today about that and kind of chuckled. Would you identify any arguments that you or I had as council members yesterday?
No, I'm surprised we didn't have an argument yesterday, but the meeting went well. We had lively discussions. We got our questions answered and clarified, and the meeting went along fine. So I was quite surprised when you called me and told me about the squabbling headline. So no, we did not.
Well, I guess some local media, if it's done in New Lenox or Romeoville, is called debate or discussion, but when we do it, it's called squabbling. What we did yesterday is we certainly vetted each item to determine basically, as I led many of the discussions, was are we already committed to it? Do we already have the money? And if not, do we have the money and should we commit to it? And if that's squabbling, I want to be a squabbler because that's taking care of every penny that our taxpayers are trusting us with and giving us the ability to say no on expenditures that would increase the taxes. So, you know, I'm squabbler number one. I'm proud of that.
Go ahead.
You did fine, Larry. Everything was,
Thank you.
the meeting was ran really well, so I don't know where that came from, but I didn't see it, and I was on the call, so.
Next on our consent agenda is the approval of the council meeting minutes held on April 7th, 2020, and the minutes for the special council meeting held on April 13th, 2020. It's recommended the minutes be approved.
Mayor?
Yes.
I do have one comment about the minutes from the April 13th meeting. It's kind of a technical point, but it's on page 15. Motion to approve suspending the public hearing. Actually, we closed the oral portion of the public hearing and kept the written part of the public hearing open till the next day.
Okay.
So,
Does it need to be amended?
yes.
Can't we move to approve with that amendment?
With that amendment, right.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah.
I would move to approve the minutes with the April 13th amendment that Corporation Counsel Marty Shanahan just pointed out.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve the April 7th, 2020 council meeting minutes and the April 13th special meeting minutes with the change stating that the oral portion was closed with the written portion remaining open on page 15, is that what you said?
Yes.
Page 15. Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hugg,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Motion carried. There are no licenses and permit applications this evening and no public hearings, so moving on under ordinances is Council Memo 249-20, ordinances associated with Joliet Logistics Park subdivision. This includes a reapproval of the preliminary plat and a final plat Phase 2. We do have Bob McCormick, the petitioner, on the line, and Joe Hammer. They would like to give an overview of the project.
Okay.
Good evening, Council. My name is Joe Hammer with Rudiger Tonelli and Associates, 129 Pista Drive, Shorewood, Illinois. We are the engineers and surveyors for the Joliet Logistics Park project. Bob McCormick is also on the line for representation of the owner group. We're here asking for the preliminary plat reapproval of the Joliet Logistics Park, as well as the final plat approval for Phase 2, which is Lot 5 of the plat of the subdivision. Preliminary plat was originally approved in 2007. A final plat was approved in 2009, but never recorded as the end user backed out of the deal. The preliminary plat had been reapproved in 2009, 2011, and 2014 as the project didn't see any interest with development. In 2016, the preliminary plat was reapproved and a final plat and record plat was approved and recorded for Phase 1A, which included lots 4 and 6. That is the Hillwood warehouse that is out there now, and included the stormwater detention immediately south of it. Following that project in 2016, again, didn't have any suitors coming in to purchase or move forward with any of the other lots, and the preliminary plat lapsed more out of oversight on our part. But this past year, we've had significant interest, specifically in Lot 5, where we have prepared the final plat for a warehouse. The final engineering's been prepared and submitted to city staff for review and approval, which we have addressed all comments from the staff level. The preliminary plat really hasn't changed since the original preliminary plat. We've had to make some minor adjustments based on the development of the Hillwood property and some of the fine-tuning of the notes. We have received a positive recommendation from Plan Commission and now seek the council's approval. And at this time, if anybody has any questions of either myself or Mr. McCormick, we'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you.
You too.
Is there a motion to approve Council Memo 249-20, which is ordinances associated with Joliet Logistics Park subdivision, reapproval of the preliminary plat and final plat Phase 2?
I'd make a motion to deny this.
I will second that motion. It was indicated in, the statement was that nothing's really changed in the preliminary plat, since the preliminary plat was originally done in 2007, 2013. On our end, a lot has changed, and we all know a lot has changed, so the appetite of the city may have changed, so I will second that motion.
It's been motioned and seconded to deny Council Memo 249-20, which is ordinances associated with Joliet Logistics Park subdivision. Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin. Councilwoman Gavin.
I'm sorry, can you hear me? I voted aye.
Okay. Motion carried. Council Memo 249-20 was denied. Next is Council Memo 250-20, an ordinance amending prior ordinance number 17566 to borrow funds from the Public Water Supply Loan Program for Water System Improvements Project. It's recommended said ordinance be adopted.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 251-20 was previously removed from the agenda. Under Resolutions, Council Memo 252-20, a resolution authorizing execution of a license agreement between the Illinois Department of Natural Resources and the City of Joliet for water main installation associated with the Hobart Road Water Main Extension Project. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
Been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 253-20 is a resolution accepting an easement agreement with Commonwealth Edison Company for the Hobart Road Water Main Extension Project. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Coleman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 254-20 is a resolution appropriating funds for the 2020 pavement marking program. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
Mayor? Yes. If I could, real quick, just comment. We did have some discussion on yesterday, and Director Jim Trizna did a very good job in answering the questions. To make a long story short, the questioning that we did was whether or not there was any cosmetic or aesthetic expenditures versus safety. And he assured us that he had sent people out, and this is just markings at busy main roads that truly need to be redone for the matter of safety. There's no cosmetics involved. Okay.
Is there a motion to approve Council Memo 254-20?
So moved.
Second.
Good.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 255-20 is a resolution appropriating motor fuel tax funds for the Charity Avenue, Knoll Avenue, Reddick Court roadway project. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
Move.
Moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 256-20 is a resolution appropriating motor fuel tax funds for the purchase of rock salt.
Mr. Mayor, since this is a combined meeting, I can start off with a little bit of an explanation. This is one of the three items that Councilman Hug was referring to that did not get positive recommendation of committee. Each of the three items we'll talk about died for lack of a second. We only had two members there. But traditionally, what the city has done is any road salt, basically used for winterizing our streets and basically making the streets safe during ice and snow events, we've utilized general fund revenues to pay for that. It leaves the motor fuel tax with greater levels of reserves and greater levels of revenue that actually goes into pavement and infrastructure projects. As we started our discussion about the COVID impacts on the finances of the city, you recall a couple weeks ago, we provided the council with a list of items that could be deferred, could be maneuvered to occur in different fiscal years, or to just find creative ways where we could minimize the impact on the general fund to start to work on that potential deficit between 12 and 20 million we've talked about. On that list, when I brought that to council between our team, this is something that I specifically identified as being a possibility of taking the 2020 remaining rock salt, and instead of applying the purchase in the general fund, that we shift that burden to the motor fuel tax fund. That basically allows for a little bit of additional relief with regard to some of the cuts and perhaps some of the things we need to do with regard to labor. It's not something that is normally done in the city, but also at the same time, we found the opportunity, I believe it was 2 years ago, to take $2.5 million out of our general fund reserves and use it for additional paving. So, some may say, well, it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul, but in effect, during some good positive years, we've utilized some general fund revenues for purposes of paving. I'm suggesting that during this unusual time period, we basically use motor fuel tax to get us through this particular year as we evaluate the impacts. So that's the logic behind this.
Mayor?
Yes.
The counterpoint to that would be what was brought to our attention yesterday additionally is we have roughly $8 million in reserve from the MFT motor fuel tax, okay? Director Jim Trizna had pointed out that, without an exact number, much of it's already preliminarily assigned in their minds to bridge improvements that are going to be required. We know what the shape of the bridges are. And I also brought up, I think it was $1.5 to $2 million for that bridge that we vacated that's still winding its way through court. We had a setback already. We could be ordered to spend $2 million on that bridge. So we're taking money out. As Steve Jones had said, using the terminology I used yesterday, we're just robbing Peter to pay Paul. They can pay it from the general fund. They just have to adjust the general fund. I think Jim Trizna put it in good perspective. To make this accounting creative and a little easier for the city manager's balancing act, he's going to have to sharpen his pencil. We'll lose at least 10 streets that can be improved. That's what that nearly 500,000, 400-some thousand will be, according to Jim Trizna, Director of Public Works. So this is not a good time to rob Peter to pay Paul. The comparison of this versus when we actually, which I was the tip of the spear on, of releasing the 2.5 million, 500,000 per district, that was back when we were doing very well, and I believe COVID was not even a thought yet.
So if we were to turn this down, where are we at with rock salt levels? Obviously, if we need this in the wintertime, we need it. And I would think this would be the time to buy it during the off months. Come on in, Jim.
Okay, what this is for is we've got to complete our purchase of the 2019-2020 contract. And when we enter into the contract, we always go through the state of Illinois, the CMS group, and we contracted for 15,000 tons of salt. That contract, you have to minimum buy 80%, which comes out to 12,000 tons. You can and the corollary of that is you can increase to 20% if you have a real bad winter. We were fortunate; we didn't have a real bad winter, so we have to purchase 80% of the 12,000 tons. So far, we have spent. Let me get my right number here: $8,448 I'm sorry, we have purchased, that's the wrong number, 8,448 tons of rock salt. So we got another roughly 3,500 tons to purchase to close out that contract. So this money, it's actually a little less than both people are saying. The amount of money to close out the contract, to buy that remaining, roughly 3,500 tons of rock salt is actually $339,961.92. So it's about $340,000. But as Councilman Hug indicated, we talked yesterday, that would be money we would normally use for maybe some more resurfacing of streets, and that's what we discussed yesterday. But so this isn't for next year's contract. This is to close out this year's.
Okay. And Mayor, we're not voting to not buy it. We're voting to whether he can push it from the general fund ledger and then take money out of monies that have been earmarked for improvements of bridges, future improvements of bridges, as well as improvements to residential streets for the residents.
It's the source, not the.
Got it. Thank you, Jim.
Is there a motion to approve Council Memo 256-20, which is a resolution appropriating motor fuel tax funds for the purchase of rock salt?
I would make a motion to reject. You get to call it. Was it a tie? Whatever you want to do, Krista.
He's got a delay, so probably went first.
Go ahead, give it to him.
Okay. So
I
there
have
was
a question, though. Is this something we could want to table and wait and see? Or do we absolutely need it right now? Because we have beet juice, can't we use beet
Yes.
juice?
Well, it gets more into the funding. Keep in mind, we're in the process, and I'm going to cover this in my city manager report. We're in the discussion with our workforce as to potential concessions. And obviously, if this isn't something that's on the list, then that concession number changes.
So I assume this is due now, though?
In terms of the purchase, it's how we're spending it. It's not that we're buying the salt.
If I could just add, yeah, we've got to close out this contract. Usually you've got till June 1st to finish out your contract. We have to, some money or another has to be used. This, roughly $340,000 has to be used to finish out this contract. Basically, we're going to have quite a bit of stall. Our domes are going to be full. We'll stockpile it. We'll use it next year. Hopefully next year's a smaller contract. But we have to purchase this, yes.
Right,
I think by June 1st, Mike's out there, he can double check, but Mike Hewlett said is, but we've got to finish out that 80%. And then after that, we're not buying any more, obviously.
I understand.
Okay?
Yeah, we're not voting on whether to, we're going to purchase it.
No, we're bound by the contract.
But you make a good point,
Purchase.
Councilwoman, because certainly they could pay for it now, and then depending on how things develop, there's so many things that I've tried to ring the bell on about not committing to yet until we see how this develops over the summer. Doesn't mean we can't come back in the fall and plug holes. If we have to come back, and you get my vote to plug a hole by taking away services to the residents, we're in pretty damn bad shape. So we can always come back. He can pay from the general fund now, and if things get as bad as some people think they might be, worst case scenario, we're going to be looking to rob a lot of Peters to pay a lot of Pauls. But we don't have to do it now.
So there's a motion.
Yeah, if we're going with Councilman Turks, which I believe he was first with
Sure,
the
go ahead.
delay. So there was a motion to approve Council Memo 256-20, which is a resolution appropriating motor fuel tax funds for the purchase of rock salt. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
No?
Councilman Morris?
No.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
I'm going to have to vote no. For now.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Motion carried 5-3. Next is Council Memo 257-20, which is a resolution authorizing execution of a legal services agreement for the Alternative Water Source Program. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Is there a second? Just want to verify because I know there's a delay, so I'm going to ask one more time for a second since there's a delay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Been motioned and seconded to approve Council Memo 257-20, which is a resolution authorizing execution of a legal services agreement for the Alternative Water Source Program.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So it's being asked a number of times, is this something that needs to be done now versus waiting a couple months till we understand where our revenues are?
Allison?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So as part of the Alternative Water Source Program, there's going to be a lot of needs associated that would require outside legal counsel. the expertise to come in and help us with the negotiation process for both water access agreements with Hammond and also water purchase agreements with the City of Chicago, as was directed by the City Council per the strategic plan that was adopted in January. So postponing this contract would delay providing the council with the information to make the decision at the end of the year on the alternative water source.
And to add to that, you recall that the city did adopt some rate adjustments in anticipation of the beginning of the engineering process. So some of that revenue has been built into the actual rate structure.
And so the funds for this are coming in out of the water sewer?
Yes, this was budgeted in the water and sewer capital fund.
Mayor,
Yes.
do we have any idea about the initial cost?
Yes, so right now we're estimating that for the fees that would likely be incurred in 2020, that would be approximately $80,000. However, it is all dependent upon how the negotiation process would proceed with both those entities.
Mayor?
Yes.
Oh. This is something we absolutely need to do immediately. We can't wait a month or two.
If we delay doing this, it would push back the entire schedule for the alternative water source program.
I would just add, we waited 30 years. Aurora started this 35 years ago.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't think we're in a position to wait on the water.
Mayor, if I could clarify, for the council and for anybody else watching, this is an enterprise fund. Unless they're coming to us asking us to put up a budget amendment from the general fund because they're in trouble, everything they do in the water and sewer is backed up. That includes the low interest loans from the EPA. It's backed up by current and future revenues at the rate that we're charging right now. So as Steve had pointed out, we've been building up that money with that rate increase that we did approve to do exactly this. And I agree with the mayor. I don't think we got 10-year window.
Okay.
Let's not make it a 9-year window.
Just a question. Thank you.
It was motioned and seconded to approve Council Memo 257-20, which is a resolution authorizing execution of a legal services agreement for the alternative water source program. Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye?
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
No.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
No.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-2. Council Memo 258-20 is a resolution authorizing execution of a federal and state, Illinois and Indiana advocacy services agreement for the alternative water source program. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve.
Yes.
Excuse me, Mayor?
Yeah, hold on, Councilman Moses has the floor.
She can go, Peter.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I wanted to ask Allison a couple questions, please.
Okay.
Will this firm will be working on both potential water sources for Chicago and Indiana?
Yes, that's correct. So the way the letter of engagement is structured is that they would provide services for federal and then also state services for Illinois and Indiana. And it's structured that we would be reviewing this on a quarterly basis. So if it is decided then that we would not proceed with, for example, the Indiana option, then we would no longer proceed with those services associated with the Indiana option.
Okay. And right now, as it exists, it's saying that, annually it would be approximately $360,000 we'd be paying this firm. Do we have any projected time frame for how long we'll be needing their services?
Right now, we anticipate that it would probably be a 2-year engagement. Again, it really depends on which alternative is ultimately selected by the City Council. The goal in 2020 is to answer the questions that were posed at the end of 2019 regarding potential funding sources. Now is really the time to be advocating for this program, to identify potential funding sources with the stimulus money and other monies that might be available. Also, just really identifying any challenges that would be potential challenges from other states regarding the city getting a Lake Michigan allocation, and really just educating the federal and state legislators about the program and really gaining their support. We're going to need a lot of support with either option that we select because of the amount of land acquisition and right-of-way that we'll need to obtain for the transmission mains. So it's very critical that we obtain that support from the federal and state legislators.
And one more question. When we were shown the proposals of the estimated cost to residents monthly billing and the proposals all together, was this an anticipated level of cost?
Yes, so this was all built into the rates that we presented to the residents were for funding the entire program, which included the preliminary and final engineering costs. So this is very minimal impact on that potentially $1 billion project. If anything, any monies that they can obtain for us will be a benefit to the city and then offset these fees that we're incurring. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Can I assume there's a number of other firms that submitted bids?
That's correct. So we received 2 qualification packages. This was the low cost that we received. The other firm had proposed it was over $40,000 a month.
2 then, including this one other one
Yes, that's correct.
besides these.
Mm-hmm.
And who all reviewed the packets?
So the selection committee consisted of myself, Nick Gornick, who's the plant operations superintendent, and then team members from the consulting team.
Thank you.
Mayor? Yep. Just to be clear, now, these are all costs that have been anticipated and estimated, and this is all coming out of the enterprise fund.
That's
which
correct.
means if we don't spend it on water and sewer, we don't spend it, right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was motion and seconded to approve Council Memo 258-20, which is a resolution authorizing execution of the federal and state Illinois and Indiana Advocacy Services Agreement for the Alternative Water Source Program. Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
No at this time.
Councilwoman Pullman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Motion carried 7-1. Next is Council Memo 259-20, which is a resolution entering into a lease agreement with H-Data and Illinois Corporation. This is for office space at 50 East Jefferson Street, Joliet Union Station.
Mr. Mayor, I'll give a little brief intro to this. This property is currently city-owned. It's part of a very small office space within Old Union Station that is adjacent to My Grain Brewing. Over the years, we've had several folks look at this it's an unusual space. We've tried to find some user in there. It was one time the potential location for a small office for Innovation Pavilion. We had some discussions with University of St. Francis, but we now actually have someone who's willing to sign a lease. It's a firm called H-Data, has 3 employees, and it's a tech company. They're looking to establish a small headquarters here in Joliet and hopefully expand the business and have a real impact within our downtown and Joliet community. The present agreement format, it's $550 a month rent, which is within scale of what we expect in office space downtown. 3-year period with 1-year increments. So this came before the Economic Development Committee back in March, and there was a positive recommendation.
Is there a motion to approve Council Memo 259-20, a resolution entering into a lease agreement with H Data and Illinois Corporation?
So move. Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Motion carried. Under award of contracts, Council Memo 261-20, award a contract for the 2020 pavement marking program. For now, we're going to skip 262 and 263. So Council Memo 264-20, approve a professional services agreement for the residential water meter evaluation and replacement study. Council Memo 265-20, award a contract for temporary telemetry system, Water SCADA. Council Memo 266-20, award a contract for the lift station pump replacement. Council Memo 267-20, award a contract for the West Side wastewater treatment plant, VFD replacement. Council Memo 268-20, award a contract for the East Side wastewater plant gas detection equipment replacement. Council Memo 269-20, award a contract for the Bluff Street and Fairmount and Garvin Booster Station rehabilitation. Council Memo 270-20, purchase portable radios and batteries. And Council Memo 271-20, award 5 contracts for the lawn maintenance of certain city-owned properties to Total Property Management, Maintenance, and Engineering Services in the aggregate amount of $38,822.35. Is there a motion to approve Council Memos 261-20 and 264-20 through 271-20?
Mayor,
Yes.
I'll make a motion to move and bring to the attention that Memo 270, the portable radios and batteries are being paid for by a grant.
Did you make a motion?
I did.
Second?
Motion to approve.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve Council Memos 261-20 and Council Memos 264-20 through 271-20. Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is Council Memo 262-20, purchase 2 trailers for the Department of Public Works Roadways Division.
Mr. Mayor, I'll give a brief intro on this. This is a carryover from our last meeting. You'll recall that our Public Works Director had brought forward a request for 5 replacement trailers within their fleet. And after some discussion at the council table, he had indicated that that could potentially be scaled down to 2 units. The topic of discussion that led it to come back was whether the unit price per trailer would remain the same in view of the fact that we were buying fewer trailers. And it is the same unit price. So fortunately, we are at $21,550 per. Once again, this was one of the items discussed at Public Service last night, which died for lack of a second. And I should point out, this is not part of the bond issue. This is something that was budgeted within the general fund Public Works budget.
Is there a motion to approve Council Memo 262-20, which is the purchase of 2 trailers for the Department of Public Works Roadways Division?
So moved.
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Coleman,
I'll vote aye, because I did ask if we could get the 2, so I'm glad that they went back and checked that out, so I will vote aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
You know, it doesn't really matter what I say. I knew that before I said this. We had a couple of council members tonight that voted no on spending money in an enterprise fund that can't be spent on anything but water. Going through a hard time, that's an overreach because it's guaranteed by rates or it's cash on hand or EPA loans. But now they're voting on spending millions of dollars we don't have. I don't follow the logic here, and I'm scared for our future. The fact that Steve Jones said it was already put in the budget, Steve, there's a lot of things in the budget that we're not going to be able to pay for between now and October. So it doesn't matter if it was put in the budget. We have to adjust now. But you convinced them. You convinced your 5. No.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Motion carried 7-1. Council Memo 263-20, purchase 5 one-ton dump trucks with plow accessories for the Department of Public Works Roadways Division.
Mr. Mayor, I'll jump in. This is the next phase of some of the vehicle purchases that we have been slowly working our way to achieve with regard to fleet replacement. This particular purchase is part of the bond issue that we've talked about. Maybe I could have Jim Trizna come up here because Jim's department is the one that lives this from day to day. But basically, these 5 one-ton dumps replace vehicles that are pretty old. We have vehicles that range from 20 to 31 years of age. In fact, 2 of them basically were taken out of service because of safety and mechanical reasons. I know you've heard it before. It's it's something we've talked about and we've re-examined it. But the bond issue, just to give you a little data, we had proposed at the beginning of the year a $4 million bond issue to pay for fleet replacement. And we've talked about enterprise funds tonight. This isn't a dedicated source that absolutely has to be used for vehicles. But when the city council adopted 3 additional cents per gallon on fuel, it was intended to come up with the start of a fleet replacement program. We cobbled together, we needed 16 million in terms of the estimates. We cobbled together a plan that would involve a $4 million bond issue and then utilize revenues as received to pay the debt service with surplus revenues paying for additional vehicles over time. For instance, in year 1, which if this would have been a normal year, we would have had about $1.6 million of revenue and then $4 million in bond proceeds on top of that with no repayment of the bonds until 2021. And then, of course, the $450,000 of debt service would be deducted from the revenues moving forward. So it was a way to accumulate money, have a dedicated source, basically start making headway into the fleet that's been pretty much neglected. Obviously, COVID hit, and we had some re-examination. We've had a variety of discussions as to whether we want to move forward or not. And part of it, I think, has been the fear of whether the gas tax and some of the changing revenue sources will result in enough money to pay the debt. $4 million bond issue, based upon current estimates from our finance director, would be somewhere in the $450,000 a year range. And very important, that 2021 would be the first payment. It turned out yesterday, I just found this out about 2 o'clock today, we actually now do have the first 2 months, February and then March, which was partially a COVID month. We've received about $150,000 per month in total revenues. So, in 2 months, we've received $300,000 from this new gas tax, keeping in mind that $450,000 would not even be due until January of 2021. We have no fears that this dedicated source will be sufficient to pay for this bond, in addition to have surplus revenues. Can I tell you that 1.6 will be in our bank account by the end of December? I can't. Can I tell you that it'll be somewhere around $1 million? Pretty darn confident. So whatever effect COVID has on our fuel, certainly it's gonna put a little pressure from the 1.6 estimate, but it's not gonna be anywhere near falling to a level where in 18 months we wouldn't be able to pay, within 12 months we wouldn't be able to pay that first debt service. Our vehicle's getting older, that's not gonna change. Any delays would basically result in some potential risk in terms of us not having some vehicles on the street. And as we pointed out, 3 of these vehicles are in service, 2 of them were taken out of service. So it's our recommendation, Finance Director, Public Works Director, myself, that we do proceed with this. If this was something within general fund revenues that didn't have a dedicated source, I don't think you'd be hearing that strong recommendation from us. But we're saying we need to spend some money on our fleet.
Mayor, Marty, clarification. The 3-cent tax is not part of the MFT structure. It's beyond that. So it's not strictly the guidelines. The guidelines on the spending of the 3% is by action of this council, what we dedicated for.
You mean the 3 cents? Yes.
3 cents, I'm sorry, I'm saying percent, 3
It's up
cents.
to you.
Right, so we could change that.
You can change it.
If things are horrible in October.
You could.
So what Steve said is we need to take away 10 or more streets from residents to shift for almost 400,000 away from the motor fuel tax fund over to the general fund. But he wants to dedicate this 3 cents that is not committed, so you all understand that, to roads. It can be used as a source, as he alluded earlier, later in the year when things get really bad. By action of this council, we can say, well, what little money or what medium amount of money came in from that 3 cents, we need to plug this hole. Now we can't. That's all I have to say. I mean, it's insanity.
Can I just add one thing? Quick? Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, Jan, last meeting, you asked us about the possibility of leasing. And I did research, we talked about this yesterday, Larry, he remembers, and so does Betty. But just for your sake and the rest of the council, what I did is I reached out to a lot of the public works directors across the state. I'm a member of this Illinois Municipal League Public Works Committee. So I reached out to quite a few of those folks across the state. Well, asked them, first of all, do you own or do you lease your vehicles? And everybody, generally what I thought, almost everyone owns. Everyone owns their vehicles. Luckily, I found one community, North Chicago, which is a much smaller town than us, about 32,000, 33,000 population. They do lease. So, and the gentleman up there, the public works director, he was very helpful. He provided information to us. So we looked into, and I specifically asked him about a 1-ton dump truck, which is what we're looking at purchasing now, 5 1-tons. And the information he gave me was, again, the backup, the 1-tons are less expensive what he bought. They didn't have as much power as we had. They didn't have any of the snow removal equipment we have on ours. You know, we got to be a little versatile. We do use 1-tons for snow removal on some cul-de-sac streets, but also on main streets if we have a truck that's incapacitated. It's in the shop being repaired from a storm. So anyway, we had quite a bit extra power, an extra gear drive, and additional snow equipment. So ours are more expensive, but his truck would have been $45,000 to purchase. Their lease was $920.52 a month for 5 years or 60 months. It comes out to be around $55,000 they pay for the lease. So they paid about $10,000 more to lease it for 5 years than they would if they would have bought it outright. The second thing is, at that point, they have to turn the vehicle back to the agent, the company they leased it from. Or they had an option they could buy. At this point, the estimate of what it would cost after 5 years, those trucks, the value would be, residual value, so to speak, would be about $13,800. So if you added that $13,800 to the already $10,000 above the asking price, you're up around $24,000 on top of the $45,000. So you almost paid double. So it really didn't make a lot of sense to us to even attempt to lease. And another thing is we know, based on the memo with the age of our fleet, is we typically keep trucks quite a bit longer than the anticipated life. But at least we own them, and our guys in the fleet do a real good job of maintaining them. So, many times we have trucks that are 20 years old, as you see, and some of the trucks that we're replacing here are from 20 to 31 years old.
Well, in answer to that, do you have to sign a 5-year contract or whatever? Could you just, seasonal rental, if you would?
Well, it'll be more money if you do that, Jan. It'll be more money. The shorter you lease, they're gonna charge you more interest. They're gonna figure you're not a real good customer. It's like
Well,
anything
no,
else
but I'm just saying to get us through this. I mean, we may not have any snow this year. We may not need that extra 1 ton. I mean,
Yeah, we don't know. That one I couldn't tell you.
nobody has that
Yeah.
crystal ball, I know, but it was worth researching, and I appreciate you doing that.
No problem.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Jim,
Yes.
so what, I don't know if we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Why 5 if we not using 2? We took 2 out of service. Why are we not just
Well,
replacing those?
actually, when we put together the plan, the vehicle replacement plan, we really had 8 in there. We ratcheted down to 5, based on the cost they're coming in at. And we set aside, of that $5.6 million, we set aside $480,000 to buy 1 tons. And when we inadvertently left off the snow removal equipment, so the price we put in there was a little lower. So again, we've got different categories of vehicles we want to buy, so we're trying to keep it down to within our budget amount. The 480, it's actually less than 480,000. It would be 432,000. But the bottom line is we really need 8. There's 8 that are in pretty bad shape, so we backed it down to 5.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve Council Memo 263-20, which is a request for authorization to purchase 5 one-ton dump trucks with plow accessories for the Department of Public Works Roadways Division?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
I'm gonna vote aye and just say that, the trucks that these 5 are replacing are in so poor condition that I don't think it's safe for our staff to even be driving them or be on the streets with, citizens. I just think it's an unsafe situation, so I vote aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Yes, I'd like to add my comments to Councilman Turk. I believe that safety is utmost. And what I have seen with these 5, they're pretty unsafe. So I vote aye.
Councilman Hug,
It's apparent to me that anybody's saying that these, all, a broad brush are unsafe. They have not taken the time that I have to talk to the mechanics, random mechanics. No, actually, we can make it through according to the mechanics. I won't throw their names out there because they don't need to be in the middle of the political hailstorm. So I vote no.
Councilman Morris,
I'll vote aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
No.
Motion carried 6-2. Next, under amendments, change orders, and payments. Council Memo 273-20, approve change order number 1 for the Charity Avenue, Knoll Avenue, Redda Court roadway project. Council Memo 274-20, approve change order number 1 for the Well Rock 2 electrical upgrades project. Council Memo 275-20, approve a payment for the 2020 membership dues for the Lower DuPage Watershed Group. Council Memo 276-20, approve change order number 1 for the Richards Street Lift Station Abandonment and Sewer Improvement Project. Is there a motion to approve Council Memos 273-20 through 276-20?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman,
Question, Mayor?
Yes.
Could I ask Mr. Trizna a question on 273-20?
Jim?
Uh, 273-20, it says because private utility relocation?
Basically,
Why is it our fault?
well, it's essentially, I say private, it's ComEd, and it was ComEd, Nicor, all the above, people delayed, it gave us major delays, so. I mean, the contract, I think, was like 550,000, I can grab it with me. It's not a substantial, it's a nice amount of money, but it's not substantial, and it was awarded in 2018. It should have been done then, we couldn't get to it till just this spring. So there's basically cost of labor increases and, material cost increases, what we got hit with,
Thank you.
yeah.
it's been motioned and seconded to approve Council Memos 273-20 through 276-20. Councilman Turk, Councilman Turk, Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is the city manager's report.
Thank you. One item, and it's all about finance. We've had a lot of discussion touching on it in different ways this evening. But last council meeting where we had a serious discussion about finance, you'll recall that we came up with a little over $9 million of cuts, and I referenced the fact that there was about a $3.8 million gap that we would have to fill. I indicated that since about 78% of our total city budget revolves around salaries and benefits and labor costs, that we were going to have some discussions with our internal staff with regard to the potential of looking at this in a collaborative way and seeing what we could do collectively to bring that 3.8 million gap down to something manageable. We have met with our labor unions 2 separate times. Once we met with all of the presidents of the unions, and second time we met with representatives of each of the locals. And we made sure that they understood exactly where the city stood with regard to some of the financial pressures. Basically, we gave them the same presentation that we gave city council at that finance committee meeting. And I talked to them about my desire to try to come up with something that is equitable and fair and uniform amongst all of our employees. And what we suggested is that, perhaps they could talk to their membership and we could have a discussion about a 4%, up to a 4% wage concession that could be temporarily established as we work our way back to getting our revenues where they were. That discussion has occurred. We anticipate having follow-up discussions with them this week, and certainly we'll bring back any unusual options and creative solutions, any sort of agreement. We'll bring that back to City Council so we could progress through this whole analysis in kind of a good planning perspective. We will give them a written, call it a term sheet or call it a tentative offer, and potentially give about a week for discussion, and then have people get back to us, and then we will come back to City Council with a game plan to move forward. The good news is, that's all the bad news, the good news is there seems to be a little bit of movement in Washington with regard to potential stimulus for state and local. And Mayor, I won't steal your thunder. I know you'll probably talk about it later under your report, but there's also another source of revenue. We've indicated to our locals that if for some reason we do get some revenue stimulus money, which every municipality in this country is facing reduced revenues because of this outbreak. We indicated that, the temporary nature of this concession, could potentially be restored if we do get some outside sources of revenue. So we're making it clear that this is a way for us to both approach this from a management side, along with labor side, that we're all sort of, taking a deep breath, doing what it is we can get through this together. And then as soon as, the revenues come back, we restore our salary and benefits to the norm. So that's where we are. But, keep your ears on Washington, because there are bills floating around out there. Last I heard was 500 million. And, distribution, where it would go, if it's per capita, none of those details we know. It's got to get through Congress before we even have that discussion. But it's good that they're talking about it, because clearly, there have been bailouts at the private sector level, obviously healthcare, but every municipality who delivers the most basic services to residents, if we can't put people on the street to render those services, then it doesn't do the country a lot of good. So I will keep the council informed, but that's where we are with this. That's the end of my report.
Question?
Yeah.
Question, Marty. The city manager had mentioned about how the labor that is required by the city to deliver services You know, and he mentioned 4% and all this as far as paying that labor. Again, a clarification. If we had been wise and held off on the $4 million bond and still were collecting the reduced amount on 3 cents, as a council, we could use that to plug the labor holes moving forward until we get under our feet. Am I correct?
You have that option, yes.
Okay. No.
Had.
Thank you.
Next is new business not for final action or recommendation.
Don, new business?
No, I have nothing, Mayor.
Betty?
Nothing, Mayor.
Sherry?
No, Mayor.
Mike?
Nope.
Terry?
No, sir.
No.
No.
Next, we have public comments. We did not receive any email comments for this portion of the agenda. However, we have received two people have registered to be called, and they are on the line now. So,
We have Mary Beth on the line.
Mary Beth, it's Mayor Odekirk. Can you give your name, address, and make your comment, please?
Sure. Mary Beth Gannon, 903 Western, Joliet, Illinois. I wanted to start off by saying I thought that was a really nice prayer by Councilman Mudrin. We do need to come together right now. I have a couple questions. I know you can't answer them in this format, but I'd like you to think about what I'm saying. I watched your budget meeting. I've watched all your council meetings, but at your budget meeting, you talked about how you're going to be out of money by July with the general fund, and then you'll have to start borrowing out of the water money that's saved. So my question is, do we really need to be buying all these vehicles right now? You know, the last council meeting, we bought 4 pickup trucks for a department that doesn't even haul anything other than themselves, their own person. So maybe we could have bought 1 truck instead of 4. Maybe we could have bought them cars instead. So I guess when I see all this spending on the agenda tonight, how are we going to make payroll? You're not going to have anybody to drive these vehicles if we can't make payroll. So I think we need to focus more on tightening our belt, just as all the residents are. We're all doing at home right now. We're trying to tighten our belts. I really think the city needs to work better on doing that. And speaking of tightening belts, I'm also wondering, are we still under contract with Ansel Glink? If so, can we rip up that contract? It would, you know, it's a lot of money we don't need to be spending. And speaking of spending a lot of money in Ansel Glink, how about Mr. Jones? He's on special contract. Maybe we could possibly look at a salary reduction for him, or maybe he'd like to retire and we could get a staffer like Mr. Shanahan or someone else to fill in and save us some money. And the last thing I wanted to bring up tonight was a special thank you to all the council members who voted yes for North Point. I come from a union family. I was a steward in my union. We need this money. Our city needs it very badly. And I'd like to thank all of you who voted yes and put Joliet residents first instead of Elwood residents, instead of Manhattan residents. Thank you for doing your part, and stay safe and wear your mask. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Kathy on the line.
Good evening, Kathy. It's Mayor Odekirk. Can you give your name, address, and comment, please?
Yes, Kathy Spieler, Joliet, Illinois. Good evening, and as much as we miss seeing everyone, I really like this call-in system, and I can see why other cities are using Joliet as a model. Tonight, I'd also like to mention a few things about city spending and suggestions to help with it. A while back, there was a vote to grant $6.5 million for library remodeling. I disagreed with this tax increase for many reasons then. But at this time, in light of how much our world has changed due to COVID-19, I'm asking that you rescind the vote or cancel the contract. We could use that $6.5 million to pay our city staff and basic city services and needs. Now, I'm not sure how you could do this, but I bet you Marty Shanahan and his legal team could find a way to help if the council would desire to take the funding back. Also, I was thinking about the Campbell Street firehouse that's not in use. Maybe you could sell it and use some of that money to fix the main firehouse that needs a new roof, as that is very important. I also want to say thank you again to the 5 council people and Mayor Odekirk for voting yes to North Point. We're looking forward to the new bridge being built and, of course, the much-needed tax revenue. Also, a special thank you to Jan Krulman for securing Joliet $5 million up front in lieu of the $2 million. Nice negotiating, Jan. And Mayor, thank you for the weekly press conferences. People appreciate them. And also thank you to everyone in the city for keeping Joliet going at this time of crisis. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our public comments this evening, so we have mayor and council comments next.
Council comments, Don?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thanks to all our city staff for the great job they're doing during this trying time, and to all of our first responders. The job that they're doing is unbelievable. Thank you.
Betty? Betty? All right. Sherry?
Yes, Mayor?
Oh, go ahead, Betty.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. I forgot I had muted my phone. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I just want to thank city staff for the tremendous work that they're doing. I also want to say happy Cinco de Mayo and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you. Sherry?
Yes, I'll echo my other two council members. They said it all. Thank you.
Mike?
I agree with the comments that have been made.
Terry?
Nothing else.
Yeah, briefly. I'm just going to summarize the meeting. We're headed down a path that is largely ruled by the unknown. We know it's going to be challenging at best and beyond challenging at worst. So tonight's meeting, we had just a couple of council members who are willing to say no to the water project and delay it by months or more, which would then put residents at risk of running out of water sooner. We had more that were willing to say no to the streets, taking away 10 or more streets from residents so that Steve Jones' job could be easier and the finance department in balancing the budget that we pay him very generously to balance. However, they said yes to buying trucks that could be delayed until we get through this crisis, and that money could have been used for the salt. So apparently putting the citizens at risk for water running out before we're ready to open our project, and taking away at least 10 improved streets to a system that's already starved for money is more important or less important than making sure we have the trucks. So I'm not sure I follow this, and I don't know if this is the path that we need to be going down over the next couple of years. Fiscal responsibility is of the utmost importance now. And I did hear that a member of this council was beating the bushes here in City Hall to try to fund the Realtor right now. None of this is fiscally responsible. With that said, I think I've summarized the meeting very briefly and very accurately. And I would say happy Mother's Day to my wife and to all the moms out there and the grandmas, even though I think they have a grandmother's day, don't they, nowadays? But they're still moms, so happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
Yes, first of all, happy Cinco de Mayo, and I hope everyone's celebrating safely this evening and not overdoing it. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms, but in particular all the aunts that step up and try to be moms to those that don't have moms, and other significant others that act as moms. Happy Mother's Day to all of you and to my colleagues. And also, the essential workers are not getting enough thanks. So again, you can't thank them enough. And for example, the clerks, the cashiers in the grocery stores, the volunteers, the managers, people that are out there trying to assist you and help you with what you need and try to be safe. Please, please, please. I know we're all under trying times and our patients are lacking, but don't take it out on those folks. They are really, really trying to help you, but also trying to be safe, and they're putting in very, very long hours. So I just want to say thank you to all the essential workers and, of course, the health workers and the first responders. And again, happy Mother's Day to all. Be safe and be well.
Just the same, essentials workers, obviously, thank you very much. First responders, thank you, and happy Mother's Day to all.
I just follow up on that. Thank you to all our employees and the essential workers. That was well said, Councilwoman. We do want to wish happy birthday to my mother, Mary. I'm not going to give her a year, but happy birthday, Mom. Also, happy Mother's Day to my mom, to my wife Rebecca, my mother-in-law Ruth, and all the mothers who are out there who will be celebrating quietly this Sunday. Marty, we got an Attorney General's opinion back regarding one of the complaints, or maybe the complaint with the North Point public hearing. Are you prepared to give like a quick rundown on that?
Just give me, if you want to go hit your other
Okay, I'll move
comments.
on to
and
that.
then,
So I've been meeting, Steve referenced it, I've been meeting regularly with other mayors in the area or in the region. I've been meeting with our U.S. Congressman, Bill Foster. I was on the phone with him this morning. I was on the phone with Governor Pritzker this afternoon. So one thing that we have learned, Steve, you mentioned different sources of federal funding. Under the CARES Act, Will County government has received $120 million to be used for COVID-19 expenses. So speaking with other mayors throughout the region, there's a lot of confusion in different counties because apparently there wasn't a lot of direction on how that money should be spent. So we are working on that. We are active with Will County government, and we're going to have to stay active also with Kendall County to see what our city is eligible for. I think we should get very aggressive with that right away. Congressman Foster also referenced there is, in front of the House, there is a second CARES Act bill which would go to local municipalities. He was vague about what he thought would actually come out of the process, said it was way too early to even guess what was going to come out. So I think we have to keep working and ringing those bells as we tighten the bell locally, as Councilman Hugg is saying. But I just want to let Joliet residents know in the council, I've been forwarding to council a lot of the emails that I'm getting, but we are actively working with all of our neighbors, trying to find a way through these difficult times. Every city, in one way or another, is reporting the same problems. They may not have a casino, they may be more dependent on property taxes or on retail taxes, but everyone's facing the same issues. So I just would compliment all the other mayors, both locally and regionally, who really are banding together. There hasn't been any partisanship at all. Everyone's trying to find a way through this. So, are you prepared, Marty?
Yes. So there was a complaint made to the Attorney General's office with respect to the city's special meeting that we had, and it was a person with a Manhattan, Illinois address. They made 6 specific claims of violations of the city's, that the city violated the Open Meetings Act. One thing I want to note on this one in particular is that many times when we get notes from the Attorney General's office, they'll contact our office, the legal department, saying, can you please respond to this? In this particular one, they didn't even ask the city to respond in this. So I thought that was, I guess, good in the sense that they could look at what was provided to them previously and then make a decision based on that. So the Attorney General opinion is actually 6 pages. So they laid out the 6 alleged violations. They did some background on the disaster proclamation and the executive orders, and then went through a number of pages of convenient and open meetings and public comment discussions, and then, of course, the end sentence was that this office concludes that the request for review didn't provide sufficient facts that the city violated Open Meetings Act, and then the file was closed. Okay. So it was good news.
Could we publish that on the city webpage?
Yeah, it's a public document.
Yes.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
Marty, was that the complaint by Andrew Schultz, or do we have more than one complaint?
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we should publish that.
We'll post it.
I guess just to wrap that up, I do want to thank the legal team for getting us through that, because obviously we knew the challenges were coming, so making sure that we didn't make any mistakes. I received a lot of feedback during that week from people, from Joliet residents who were angry about the way that meeting was being conducted, and they were angry or critical of me for not shutting it down or for allowing all of us to be insulted over and over again. But I think, and Marty, you would back it up, going into it, we were going to go out of our way to make sure that people were accommodated, knowing that this type of challenge was going to come. Would that be accurate?
Yes, and even more so. And if I had the chance to respond to the Attorney General's office, I could have even laid that out even more so.
But they didn't ask for a response?
They did not ask for a response.
Thank you.
So, a question for you, the
Yes.
attorneys. What does it usually indicate when they don't even ask for a response from the people being accused?
It wasn't as very strong.
Would you call it prima facie or something on his face?
Yeah.
It didn't even make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then finally, just to all our residents, again, to echo everyone else, please stay safe, stay healthy. I know there's some frustration about the stay-at-home, especially with the nice weather. But I thought what I heard from the governor today was a step in the right direction. So I think we are all trying to come out of this and do it responsibly. So I just want to thank everyone. And I think Councilman Mudron, you said it well early. If we row in the same direction, we'll get to where we need to be quicker. So thank you, everyone.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mayor?
Yes, Mike?
Mayor? Yeah, could I say one more thing?
Sure.
You know what, I think that, you know, all of us up there in the council, me included, I think we answer to one group of people, and that's the voters who put us there. And I have to explain my vote to the voters, and I've done that all the years I've been on the council, and I'll do that all the years that I've been remaining on the council. I think I owe it to them. They're the ones that put me there. And sometimes I disagree with some of the people's votes on the city council, but I will never call you guys out. You know, I respect your vote, and, you know, you can, I think it upsets me that we get scolded. I get scolded for voting a certain way because someone doesn't agree with it. I give everybody up their respect and asking them, you know, that I don't chastise them because I think they have a different mindset. So I would appreciate the same respect. And I think if that attitude, if everybody adopts that attitude, I think we'll all be rowing in the right direction. Just because we don't agree doesn't mean one's right and one's wrong. And that's all I got to say.
Okay.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Do you want closed session?
Second, no, I thought we were going to have one to discuss personnel, no? I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, I'll call for one, if we can have a closed session. I think we need one.
For personnel or would you?
Personnel.
Okay.
So moved.
Before we vote, I got a question. There's something, somebody can let me know, we should discuss this in closed session. You know, the Councilwoman Quillman had brought it up a few weeks back, and I'm still uncomfortable. There's no accusations, it's just that there's no security in having an executive session with now we've grown to 4 members that are somewhere where we don't know who could walk in. You know, how do we address that?
Well, I think the video may help. At least have an eye on what's going on in the internet.
Can we hold off on executive sessions until we set that video for the next meeting?
I don't think we can, based on what Mr. Jones said. I think, I have a question I'd like to ask, so. I guess we could do it publicly if you want.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Well, I know you're meeting again on Friday. Are you going to come back to the council before you move forward with any action, or are you gonna implement your own plan after Friday?
No, this is a work in progress, so, yeah, I mean, I'm certainly going to communicate with council as to what we're doing.
Not communicate, I'd like it to be done at a meeting formally, not an email or a phone call.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
So it's gonna be-
I'm okay then, without executive session.
Okay, so is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
So motion and seconded to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.